And welcome back to the Nutrimedical Report, and it is hour number 2 on Tuesday the 20th. We're just a matter of a few days away from the amazing holiday of Christmas. And of course, it's interesting that this year Christmas and New Year's fall on Sunday, so the Monday afterward is going to be a holiday. Now, you need to know that we are doing a lot of things to try to improve the services we provide here. We're dramatically expanding the amount of videos that I'm producing to explain how to use the products. And I also, when I do the videos, which is about 1.5 to 2.5 minutes, so they're short and punchy, they cover everything. They also tell you what other products are helpful with those. For example, if you're trying to protect your arteries and you want to stop free radicals and you're diabetic, you have, say, Nutrimedical, which recycles your fat and water soluble antioxidants, and carnosine D-Link. If you're trying to lower blood pressure, we have Cardiovasc. Supernox to release nitric oxide. We're now adding a new beet juice powder with that that's going to help tremendously. We have, of course, the new Omega Pro, which we'll be launching in the next few weeks. The Omega Pro, of course, is a new monoglyceride form, smaller soft gel, higher absorption rates. We have amazing upgrades a few months ago in our Gamma A Plus with tocotrienols, tocopherols, and it's so powerful it'll stop the tocotrienols and tocopherols will stop the peroxynitrate in your brain, in your eyes, and in your other target tissues like your joints. We have great combinations. Now, we also have new technologies we're always working on. And the latest technology, of course, is to embed these harmonic resonant frequencies in various technology. We'll be joined in a moment with Emil de Toffel and SAMF because he's created a little combination of technologies that can take our MP3s for harmonic resonance of minerals to try to open up the ion channel gates in your cells so that your cells absorb more of the minerals to turn on more of the genes to stimulate healing and regeneration. Now, the unique thing about Nutrimeds compared to any other nutraceuticals is, number one, they're high bioavailability, long release time. For example, it's not just ALA, we have Nutri-Trala, the only long-acting alpha-lipoic acid on the planet. We have, for example, the only CoQ10 on the planet that doesn't polymerize or crystallize. We have the highest bioavailable CoQ10 ubiquinol. We have new nutraceuticals we're working on now, some of them for years before we launched them. It took some long time for me to develop the Nutri Silver, which is far superior even to the Silver 100. It is an angstrom hydrogenated silver that is wrapped in a liposomal enzymatic envelope. So it's going to get to the target tissues. It's more powerful, and there is no other ionic silver in the world. We have the Silver 100 and now our latest technology, which is advanced above that. Now, why is this important? It's important because we're always working to try to give better diagnostics. And I tell people, keep your skepticals on. If you are a conventional doctor and you want to learn how to do functional medicine and you're not into the quantum diagnostics of QRMA or the metapathia, I will tell you what certified labs you can do to actually find out what your nutritional and vitamin status and mineral status is. Labs like Genova Labs, Doctors Data, McGuffey Labs, Dunwoody, all kinds of different laboratories that actually are federally certified labs, antibody assay reference labs, so what we can do is we can often do it through clearinghouses like directlabs.com. The nice thing about it is that we can validate with the tests even quicker if we do a QRMA, which is one of the best tests to do. And we're always advancing our technology. There'll be when I get a QRMA, for example, I can do a report and get it back within a day or two and tell them exactly what they need to take now. And it's going to change in 3 or 6 months as you repeat the tests. What you'll see is about half the tests are pretty straightforward in terms of looking at them, but you won't know what to give to correct those particular issues. The key principle is when you test, you give what you need and not what you think you need. Now, if you're giving what someone needs and you're only deficient, let's say, in one particular nutrient or another, you can use a general background nutrient that's going to cover everything, and you don't have to give megadoses. For example, if you're low in potassium, I would recommend our magnesium potassium citrate. If you're low in magnesium, I'd recommend for your body magnesium glycinate malate, and for the brain, our a brain mag, which is a magnesium L-threonate that crosses the blood-brain barrier. So we can actually determine that. And the nice thing about more advanced testing, like the metapathia, is it actually can target down in organs. It can scan down to individual organs individual chromosomes and individual genes. And the nice thing about that is it'll pick up different health issues. For example, some of the latest things we're finding is we're seeing more and more evidence that we can correct the epigenetics of many illnesses with the right kinds of high-powered nutrients and minerals targeted for that particular organ. So we actually can be very targeted and then go back and retest to see if what we did worked. So that's pretty amazing stuff. And, I'm very pleased that this meshes well with conventional medicine. For example, people are often not properly prepped. They're told, for example, if they're hypertensive, if they're diabetic, or they have a health problem, they can only follow conventional drug therapy. And what I got to tell them is the conventional drug therapy in many cases will cause new problems. If you look at all the complications and lawsuits over, anti-clotting agents like, Xarelto and Eliquis. If you look at Invokana, the latest lawsuits you'll see all over the news when, people get, diabetic ketoacidosis and get an attack, they can lose their kidney function or they can die or develop a cardiac arrhythmia. What you want to know is that the natural approach is always superior, and if you have to use drugs, it's a temporary thing or a stopgap thing until you get past it. And many of even these diabetic drugs are quite dangerous and will cause new types of complications, and they don't address the underlying problem. Even just chasing someone's blood sugar down, even with natural things, isn't going to fix it if you also don't fix the free radical issues and the inflammatory issues that are going along with it, because they're the actual triggers that actually create the problem. So now with less EMF, there's a number of things that are available. Firstly, we need to be aware that if you're within, say, 100 miles of a nuclear plant, they're all giving off radiation, especially if you're downwind of them. We're all being exposed to some degree of Fukushima Daiichi, although most of the upper atmosphere debris only falls when it rains or snows, because it's at high altitudes. The coastal areas, you have to be careful for where the fish are being caught, because there may be radiation in the fish. So I often will tell people, get an Inspector Plus and test your food before you eat it if it's fish from the Pacific Ocean. Now, the toxicology of what's going on in our environment is important. Also, clean out your water. For example, if you have a relative that has health problems and you're trying to detox, one of the first things you want to do is get a pure water system. You'll save 10% by buying them through us at Nutrimedical and using the code Nutrimed, N-U-T-R-I-MED. That's pretty amazing. Whole house systems, Bev 100, 300, the 200 tackle box, and the 500 automated flushing system. Those are all available right now. We're also going to be launching an Amazon store for specific equipment that we don't carry or never did carry. Except many years ago we had, for example, the Sinupulse until it became real popular, developed by an ENT doctor in Oklahoma. We'll also be carrying the HydroFloss, other types of equipment, and may occasionally carry other technologies that they have that we don't need to, second guess and try to inventory them. But the Nutrimeds line is prescient. There's nobody that has our powerful Nutrimeds line. And what's neat is they don't have the protocols on how to use them, which is very important. And, we have memberships for those people who are regular, recent customers to look at it. But I always tell people, if you're in doubt, because some of these protocols are old, 2 or 3 years old, just drop me an email and I'll email you back what I would recommend, or even what kind of testing, either for quantum testing or blood, urine, stool imaging studies are necessary to identify your problem. Because sometimes people will ask me a open-ended question, they give me like two sentences and say, well, what do you think, is my, let's say, partial tear of such and such a ligament? I say, well, I need to have the MRI scan. I need to have the report. I need to know your nutritional status, what else you're taking for nutraceuticals to regenerate the tissue. And I need to know if you were taking non-steroidals would dry out your joints. And that's what's neat, is that I ask them the right questions, so when I get the data, I can give them a much more weighted answer that tells them what's really going on. So that's the kind of the new procedure that we use. Now, if with less EMFs, they provide us testing equipment to reduce electropollution in your home. You've got the Stenserizer plugins for capacitors to get rid of low-frequency pollution. They have the things that can block smart meters, because when the power comes into your home, even if you don't have a smart meter, there's electropollution coming along the power lines. They can also, by the way, come in through the water lines. People may not be aware of that. And even travel miles through magnetite or iron-containing materials in the soil or the ground rock. They can actually carry electropollution many miles along from the power lines. The important thing to realize is all of these things are impinging on your biology, and you want to reduce them to the point where you can stay in a zone we call compensation, where you can overcome the toxic pollution, heavy metals, radiotoxins, and pollution, electrosmog that's trying to scramble your cellular communication. Now, because of that, we were able to with Nutrimeds and with our scalar technology, we were able to stimulate tissues to heal. I just give an example. Last night I get in, listened to some really nice holiday music while I sat in my chamber, my hyperbaric chamber, for 45 minutes. And I can tell you, if you meditate, if you relax, and I can bring my laptop in there too if I need to work, but if you can sit in there for a half hour, 45 minutes every day in your hyperbaric chamber, and you have any health problems, you're way ahead of the game. We'll also be working at trying to bring in a service for extracorporeal counterpulsation therapy. So anybody that has a circulatory problem, diabetics with poor circulation and in danger of amputations, people with kidney disease and they're diabetic, people with eye disease, we can restore with not only the nutraceuticals but the counterpulsation therapy and reverse fatigue, muscle cramps, circulatory issues, regenerate nitric oxide by exercising your vessels to learn how to create a peristaltic wave in response to between pulses, a wave by the machine that exercises your blood vessel walls. So those are technologies we'll be bringing on a supplier in the new year as well to provide that. Because we want you to have it at home. Your doctor may not be up to speed, and we have specific places where you can be tested to make sure you're safe, and it's important to see the right health professionals beforehand before you do that. So it's not just a matter of the right nutraceuticals. We also want to minimize drugs. Our gentleman Ken, that just was in terminal heart failure we talked about the other day, he dramatically cut out probably 3/4 of the drugs he was on, and he wants to cut out more. Well, we need to bring him to the next level. We need to make sure his nitric oxide metabolism, his free radical metabolism, his vascular health, everything is even better than it is now, so we can start cutting out some of these other drugs. And he will feel better and better as we cut those drugs out, but replace them with improved physiology. That's what's kind of neat about this whole process, is we're able to, in a sense, tackle the issues. For example, when someone's diabetic, it's not just that they have a high blood sugar and the glycosylated hemoglobin is going to cause damage. It's that they have a free radical disorder with inflammation throughout the body, and the glycosylated hemoglobin is just a side effect of the increased free radical load, because sugar is a good patch to grab the singlet oxygen, and then it cross-links the protein and the sugar molecules to change the quaternary structure of proteins and enzymes that kind of screws them up. Well, yes, you want to get your blood sugar down, but you also want to get the free radical levels down. And that's where we get things like Nutri-Trala, carnosine D-link, cell detox glutathione, minerals plus minerals to help support all your antioxidant systems, omega fatty acid, like omega supreme krill with astaxanthin, and of course things like omega cod liver liquid, which is going to have vitamin E, A, D, E, and K, and now our new oil, which is the Omega Pro, the monoglyceride. So as we start to extend further and further into the functional medicine side, we are able to cut out more and more and more drugs, and the person is able to get more and more regeneration of their physiology with things like nutraceuticals, hyperbarics, lumen photon, and of course now we have, the micropulse to stimulate stem cells, and we now have its new technology brother, which is the matrix pulse developed by Dr. Roth and Dr. Bob Dennis, which will actually turn off pain. So all these technologies mean that there's no need for you to suffer. There's no need for you to be ignorant of the fact that there's many things you can do. And when I do a consultation, I may say, look, you need a force plate analysis and a gait analysis and a leg length discrepancy adjustment with a podiatrist. I may say, hey, this requires a surgical intervention, or I need to see certain types of imaging studies to know if what's going on with your relative, if they've got a dementing illness, what is happening to their brain. Is it circulatory? Is it inflammatory? Is it dysmyelination like MS? What's the underlying process? Is it neurotransmitting imbalance in the brain tissue itself? And we can determine that with the right types of blood tests, imaging studies, and so on, and then start to tease it apart to hopefully fix the problem. So that's what's really amazing about doing this, even at a great distance, where I can get a consult from South America, or from Malaysia, or from Japan. I can tell them, with a translator, I can tell them, well, this is why this problem is developing, and these are the tests that will determine if, how far gone the person is, and what we need to do to actually fix the problem. That's what I think is particularly exciting about functional medicine. We're able to actually, with living pathology, fix the actual problem. Now, one of the things that we often see, and I'm just going to pull up some of my latest consultations, because I try to clear my email list every day, and it's not always easy. For example, sometimes I get people that they want to find alternative ways to get rid of Zika virus. We already have the answer. We have 3 major antipathogenics. The first is Allicin Med, that'll prevent biting insects, NutriSilver, and Nutriodine. And to block the viral capsid from attaching to your cell membranes, NutriDefense, which blocks the receptor binding domain. When we look at, for example, I had a request, somebody couldn't find our Dead Sea Minerals. You have to look at the affiliates on the right panel of the front of Nutrimedical page, and you'll see affiliates, and you go down the list, you'll see MG12 for Dead Sea Minerals. Let's see. There was another request here. Protocols for the middle ear. The middle ear, the most common thing is that the semicircular canals and the middle ear itself have lost, because of peroxynitrate, the hair cells, and you need to stop that. So Gamma E+, our new Gamma E+, very powerful. Cell detox glutathione to get rid of the hydroperoxy radical. CoQ10 Supreme, ubiquinol, which is the CoQ10 that's water soluble for the brain. Ear Care Menierin is going to include a whole range of nutraceuticals for inner ear care. And Neurogen, because there's often, with chronic inflammation, dysmyelination or loss of the myelin sheath of the nerves of the middle ear. You can also add things for cholinergic pathways, such as ultrathymine B1, CDP choline, and uridine or uridine monophosphate, because they work in a number of conditions where acetylcholine is reduced. Motor conditions, visual conditions, hearing conditions, etc., and memory conditions. So we're able to help that as well. You can also do transcranial therapy with lumen photon or the micropulse, and if it's a really severe middle ear problem, mild hyperbaric oxygen will help. I had a request for an updated protocol for someone with Alzheimer's. Very difficult thing to treat. Remember, Alzheimer's disease is diabetes of the brain. Inflammation of the brain and the glial cells. So we start off with brain power of vinpocetine to protect the brain. Cognition Plus. Again, I mentioned CDP choline, uridine monophosphate, ultrathymine B1, uridine and uridine monophosphate, cell detox glutathione, and the CoQ10 ubiquinol, and Gamma E+. And then the antipathogenics to deal with the possibility that there's an activated virus or other pathogen triggering off brain inflammation. And we're back with Emil de Toffel. Emil, we have Christmas specials. Why don't you tell us all about them from Leslie Matt?
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. We have a number of things going on here this time of year. Some of the items make great gifts and stocking stuffers to help your friends and family reduce their electromagnetic radiation during the holidays and afterwards. I would encourage your viewers to think about things for cell phones, cell phone shielding, so a shielding pouch or a shielding holster to put the phone in, or even a case with shielding built into it. In addition, we have shielding liners, peel and stick liners that you can cut to the sides of the phone and line the back of the phone with, so that a person carrying it in their pocket or in their hand can be reducing the radiation to their body. Of course, if you're going to be putting the phone up to your head to make a call or to be on a call, you definitely want to use one of the shielding pouches because you'll have the phone in the pouch or case, and it'll have the shielded cover so that the radiation's not coming into your head. It doesn't help at all to shield the back of the phone if you're going to be putting the front of the phone up to your head. So keep that in mind. The other option, of course, is to use the shielded headsets, which use an air tube to conduct the sound up to the user's head. In this way, using distance to move the phone away from the head, away from the body when you're speaking on it. That allows you to continue to use the touch screen and the other features of the phone while reducing radiation to the head. If you have anyone on your gift list that just had a baby or is expecting soon, we have a number of baby-related shielding items, including a swaddling sheet for newborns that's shielded so that they can be wrapped up and their little bodies can be protected from the radiation. There's a baby blanket. It's a soft, fuzzy blanket, comes in blue and in pink, and can be used to wrap either the belly or the baby after they're born and shield them. And if you're using a baby monitor, remember these are wireless devices, and both the camera and the video display are both radiating. They talk to each other, and so you'll get radiation out of both ends of this thing. So pay attention to whether or not you're putting one of these near the baby for extended time during their nap time, during bedtime at night, as well as the other part of it at the parent's bed. So there are shields, clear shields, that you can put on the front of these devices so they can continue to operate. The signal is unimpeded, but can't go in the direction that the device is pointing. There's also a shielded belly band. So for expecting moms with a fetus inside and their belly's growing, the belly band carries a shielded fabric around the front. It's elastic, so it can stretch and move and grow with you. And it's a great gift for an expecting mom or soon-to-be mom to keep that fetus protected. And finally, there's a number of shielded maternity chemicals in a couple of different designs, made with a silver-containing fabric. This will cover the mom's abdomen and torso area and keep the developing baby protected while up until birth, at least.
Yeah, that's really amazing array of protections. You also have technologies for picking up the pollution in your home. And whether it's a dimmer switch or just bad electrical wiring or pollution coming into the home, you have ways of blocking that too. Do you want to mention some of those testing equipment that's available as well?
Sure we do. We've put together a home EMF survey kit. So for the person who wants to check out their home, and there's such a wide variety of meters to select from, it can be a little bit daunting. So we've put together a kit of inexpensive but reliable equipment that is easy to learn how to use. You're not going to have to read a giant manual to figure out. These are selected to have just one or two buttons on them to operate the thing and allow you to check both the high-frequency radiation, the radiation that we're getting from our smart meters and cell phones, radiation that we're getting from Wi-Fi and all that wireless communication, as well as the low-frequency radiation that comes at us from all the things that are plugged into our electricity, so lights, appliances, computers, even the wiring in our home. All that can be checked, measured, determine if you have a problem in your home. And once you do, if you identify the source, we can certainly recommend for you a way to shield or reduce that amount of radiation in your case.
Yeah. Amazing array. We'll be back in a moment. We'll talk about lots of other technology, including our broadcasting MP3 technology and more on testing for radiation, etc. Great Christmas gifts. Those shielding things are really good. The average person is starting to become aware that they're really not protected in the radiation or radiotoxins or even the shift in the ultraviolet light spectra. In every way, people are getting assaulted. In fact, it's interesting. I just had a request from someone in their hydrochlorothiazide to get a warning sheet from their pharmacist that it was photoactivated by ultraviolet light. Now, of course, the ultraviolet light's higher energy. We have more electropollution, especially with switching mode power supplies. Years ago, all the noise from different appliances would actually cancel itself out and create a white noise blanket over the electropollution. Now you can entrain tissues the pulse at the frequency of the incoming electropollution, usually in lower frequency ranges. So all this stuff is very bad for human biology, isn't it? So, Emil, can you give us some ideas of some of the testing technology you have, and also the range of other issues, radiation, not only electropollution, but also the other types of issues that you can measure, like ultraviolet light. A lot of people don't realize that you can actually go to government websites and see the UV rating for that day. Not just the weather, you can see actually, if I go outside, am I going to get burnt? Even in the wintertime, when it's somewhat cloudy, you might have a high UV index.
Sure, yeah, I'd be happy to. When we think about electromagnetic fields, of course, that term encompasses a lot of different things. You know, there's this spectrum of electromagnetic fields going from a zero frequency, what we call DC, all the way through light and X-rays, gamma rays, and all the way up into, extraordinarily high frequencies. And all of that really is an electromagnetic field. However, when we talk about home ownership or work-related EMFs, we're talking about a certain band of that band that's below the infrared, so certainly not light and UV and X-rays and all that sort of thing, but that part that's the lower end of the spectrum. Even within that, we break it into a couple of different components because, for practical matters, the radiation behaves differently at different frequencies. The reason it behaves differently at different frequencies has to do with the wavelength. If you imagine a source of this EMF emitting a certain wavelength, in the immediate vicinity of the source, what we call the near field, this radiated electromagnetic field is not organized, it's chaotic, and the electric and the magnetic components are not joined or coupled. So they behave independently of each other. The size of that field depends exactly on the wavelength. And technically, if you were to take a wavelength and draw a circumference around that source, that would be the size of the near field. So one wavelength of circumference. So if you imagine at 60 hertz, the wavelength of, for example, the power that comes into our home, the wavelength there is like the distance from New York to Chicago. And so the near field is very large. You're always within that near field when you're working with those low frequencies. However, at cell phone frequencies, the near field is on the order of a few inches, depending on which frequency your phone is using. And so you can very easily be in the near field if you hold the phone up to your head, or you can be in what's called the far field if the phone is, say, next to you on the seat or on the bedstand. So you need to pay a little bit of attention to the issue when you're working with the higher end of the frequencies, the radio waves, the microwaves, because you could be in the near field, be in the far field. The reason that's important is because in the near field, you have to measure and you have to feel differently than you would when you're in the far field. Okay, having said all that, that's an easy case. In the low frequencies, the electricity, the wiring, the lighting, the appliances, we're always in the near field. Remember that near field boundary is thousands of miles. So in this case, in the near field, the electric and magnetic field are not coupled, and so we need to measure them separately in order to what each one is doing. And we need to shield them separately. So a great choice of meter for that kind of work, the tri-fields meter, is a very simple meter, very easy to use. It has a nice big needle gauge, which I love because it has a very fast reaction time. If you're moving with the meter, you're walking down the hallway, and you pass an area where a high field, that needle will bounce immediately, and you'll be able to see right away. It's a great tool for you to sweep over the surface of the wall, so you're trying to trace a wire in the wall. It's also a great meter if you want where that buried invisible dog fence is. So you can very quickly walk across your yard, and you'll see that needle bounce up when you pass over the buried wire. It has one knob on it. You turn it to magnetic, and you go along, and you're measuring magnetic. You turn it to electric, and you go along, you're measuring electric field. So it's a great choice for that low-frequency work. On the higher end, high frequencies, remember, we're going to be usually in the far field. If you're measuring a cell tower, you're measuring Wi-Fi, you're not going to be measuring right up against the source. Most of the meters for high-frequency work are far-field meters. And it's as simple as turning the meter on, taking your measurement in the middle of your room or near the bed or wherever it is that you want to make your measurement. The antenna orientation matters. The orientation of the fields in space is oriented. Much of the fields are oriented vertically, but some are not. You can imagine the radiation from your cell phone, because your cell phone's not always held vertically or horizontally. The orientation of the radiation coming out of it could be vertical, could be horizontal, could be at an angle, could be any different which way. Add to that almost anywhere you go, there's going to be a mixture of frequencies, right? There's very rare that it's only going to be one signal from one source, unless you're way out in the desert somewhere, out in the ocean, far away from mankind. Having said that, you're going to take your high-frequency meter and you're going to rotate it. You're going to rotate the antenna to the left, to the right, up and down, and you're going to see various high readings. So you might have one high reading to the west, let's say, and a different one as you move towards the north. You might have a high reading with the antenna pointed vertically up and down, and then as you rotate the meter to the antenna's horizontal, you might get a different reading. And so you need to take all these things into account when you're using a radio frequency meter, the orientation of the antenna. So be careful not to take just one reading, because it could be by chance that it's pointing in a direction that's not picking up the radiation that's there. And so you could get an artificially low reading and have an artificial peace of mind that you're doing okay. You definitely want to rotate the meter in different directions. A great choice for this kind of work is called the high-frequency meter. This device has an external antenna, it's sort of a green triangular-shaped antenna.
Yeah, it's the one that we use for smart meters, right?
Yes, it is. It's perfect for smart meters because it has that sound output so that you can actually hear when those smart meter pulses take place. You'll notice that the meter will be quiet, and then you get this enormous burst and a very loud crackling noise come out of the meter, and then, of course, the numbers on the face of the meter will go up corresponding to the strength of the signal as well. But it also can be used to measure Wi-Fi signals, cell phone signals, leakage from your microwave oven, even other communication signals, perhaps from fire and police radio, and so on. So it's a very versatile and yet very simple meter to use. The sound feature can be adjusted. You could turn it down or turn it off, or you can make it louder if you want to. And it's a great meter if you need to videotape an occurrence to demonstrate to someone else, perhaps to a courtroom or to your neighbor about what his equipment is radiating out into the neighborhood or in some other way. So it shows up very well on a video recorder. You can see the numbers, you can hear the sound as you point.
Yeah, it's a real eye-opener when you sit like I am. And I have 1.3 acres. Home across the way has 3.2. We have usually anywhere from 1 to 3 acres for homes. And we've got 8 homes in our gated community. But I can point my high-frequency meter, the Gigahertz Solutions one from Germany, and it pops through the ceiling when you point the antenna towards someone's home with a smart meter on it. It's disturbing. And, the power companies say it does it, just a couple times a day. And I confronted them. I said, it's doing it like every 4 to 7 seconds, not several times a day. And over 2,000 microwatts per square meter.
That's absolutely right. We get calls all the time from people who have called their utility company, and the utility company has told them, oh, no, you don't have a smart meter. They're playing this semantics game where they're calling meters other things besides smart, either because the so-called smart part of it has not been activated or turned on yet, or because it is not smart in the sense that it's not interacting with your appliances in your house yet.
Right. Well, what they're doing now is
However,
looking at the power curve, but the danger is when they turn these things smart, the amount of data and the amount of on phase of these smart meters and the smart appliances is going to go crazy. Everything will be broadcasting at 2.4 gigahertz, which is the harmonic resonance of water. It's the primary transmission fluid for all the cellular communications in every living cell. That's craziness.
It's very crazy, but don't be lulled into believing what they're telling you, in the sense that it may not be smart right now, but that doesn't mean that it's not transmitting. And the only way that you would know if yours is transmitting or not is to take a meter and measure, because most of these are transmitting right out of the box. They're transmitting. So if you've got a digital electric meter on your house, not the old kind with the 4 or 5 little dials, but the kind that actually gives you a digital readout, chances are pretty good that thing is radiating. The thing is, there's lots of different styles of them, and so they'll have a different radiation pattern. Some will radiate every 4 or 5 seconds, some every 30 seconds, some once or twice a day. And the intensity of that radiation will vary, too, depending on the brand and the style of meter that you've got. So don't be lulled into thinking, I'm looking at it and it's this. You can't tell anything by looking at it. The only way you'll know is to measure, and it's a very easy thing to do. Now, by the way, as Dr. Bill mentioned, you can measure the radiation coming out of the meter right up close to the meter, and it's a very eye-opening experience.
Oh, yeah, it's scary.
But what's more important is to actually measure where the people are. So go into your house, take your meter, and in the area, let's say your electric meter is mounted on your living room wall. So you go inside the house and make your measurements there. I lived in a house once where when we moved into the house, a smart meter was already mounted on the house. And so I immediately got out my meters and I started measuring, and I said, darn it, I am not getting any signal here, which I was happy to see. I went outside, and sure enough, at the smart meter, we were getting quite a strong signal. I went back inside. Sure enough, we're not getting the signal inside. This is good, but how can it be? I went back outside, and then I knocked on the wall, and I noticed, this house has aluminum siding on it.
Okay.
So, and aluminum is a pretty good shield, and so in this case, it was giving us a very effective shield and did great. There's not too many houses that have aluminum siding anymore. This is an older house. But my point is, you have to measure where the people are. It's useful to measure out by the meter, out by the smart meter, but it's actually the most useful information you'll get is measuring where the people are. If it's not high where the people are, well, then guess what? It's not high where the people are. Keep that in mind when you're using your meters. By all means, measure inside, outside, anywhere you want. But if the levels are a little bit high up in your attic, who cares if nobody goes up there?
Right.
By
the way, that attic thing is another interesting thing. You have a netting that you can put in your attic, and it'll block EMP coming in either from the sun or from, let's say, a military attack on your radios. If you have a ham radio or other electronic equipment, just putting one ground wire to ground can protect your home from EMP, because it's going to come from above.
That's right. Shielding, you can definitely do architectural shielding in your home, whether you want to shield your attic, whether you want to shield your windows. Like in that house with the aluminum siding, of course, the windows weren't shielded at all.
Right.
Fortunately, there was none facing in that area where the smart meter was, but it's possible for the radiation to come in through a window, even if the walls are shielded. So we do have shielding materials, whether they're plastic films that can be adhered right on the window, almost like a giant decal, or like window tinting. We have shielding fabrics, some of which are fine meshes so that they let plenty of light and air come through. And some are actually solid fabrics so that they would actually block light and might be great for a curtain or to line a curtain or even on a window blind that a window shade, a roll-up type shade, can be lined in the back with the shielding fabric. So regardless of what issue you have, whether it's windows, walls, whether you need shielded clothing, whether you need shielded fabrics to make a custom item, you can find it. Go to Dr. Deagle's website, click the link for less EMF, and you'll find all of these materials there, as well as the meters that you can use to measure and diagnose.
And the big question is, how do you measure if someone's electrosensitive? Well, if you're really a stickler, you can actually look at the neuropores and the ion channels on scanning electron microscopy, and you can see that 100% of all living things are affected by electropollution. Now, only a percentage of it are going to be symptomatic, but 100% are infected. And that's what's really pretty disturbing, because we're doing a big experiment with the biology, not only of humans, but other living things. One of the major reasons why we have colony collapse disorder isn't just neonicotinoid pesticides and Bt toxin. It's the fact that we're scrambling little bee brains by scrambling their navigation system by jamming it with this electropollution. And when you jam somebody's cellular communication, you can induce cancer, inflammation, diabetes. We now know that there's a lot of linkages between the dawn of the electrical age and a lot of illnesses that have cropped up ever since. We're not going to say they're 100% the cause, but they're a major aggravator. So the rate of many illnesses is increasing dramatically, and electropollution is a big factor. So visit Less EMF. If you get your orders in today, you can get them for Santa to deliver them. That was a very interesting discussion with Emil de Toffel. Electropollution, what it does to your cells is the telomeres on your end of your chromosomes talk to your cell membrane and let ion channels, let minerals in, and other nutrients. If you jam those communications, you actually jam the turning on and off of genes. And that can cause inflammation, cancer, trigger off diabetes, cause insomnia. It can do a whole range of things that that would otherwise mess up your biology. So do consider it. Do think about even simple things like blocking materials for cell phones. A lot of people are using these things to even sleep with them. It's interesting that a lot of people literally slide their cell phone under their pillow so they won't miss any messages or whatever. You know, you really want to have some kind of a sleeve or something to protect yourself from the radiation from your cell phone. I want to. We're going to be bringing on Tim Alexander here, and we have a lot of things to celebrate. There are only 2 we call faceless electors that didn't go for Trump, but I heard there were 6 for Hillary Clinton, which backfired on her. It's very embarrassing that she actually had 6 electors that actually voted against her when they were pushing for all this. They also had 141 extra votes in Wisconsin when they pushed the vote. So, which I think is kind of hilarious here is that she doesn't get it, that she didn't connect with the voters. She didn't provide a concern for people in the Rust Belt states. She didn't care about jobs and things for real people. They were concerned about their ultra-leftist policies about, bathroom access for alternative sexual orientation and, government-sponsored jobs which never work. It has to be private industry. And you just want to get out of the way in terms of regulations, but you want regulations that are good, or recommendations like getting rid of chemical hydrofracking for oil and gas, etc. So I think it's important for people to start kind of grasping that we try to focus on issues that are real and not artificial, and we want to find real solutions, whether it's electropollution or getting your health restored or reversing insomnia or improving your finances with care bars. We're trying to provide you solutions and ways of looking at things that can kind of pare it down. One of the things that I find interesting is all the rise of new technology. It's a two-edged sword. You need to be aware that some of this technology is very good, some of it's very, very bad. For example, I had an interesting question here. People say, should I take magnesium glycinate with calcium? Not necessarily. The most deficient mineral is going to be magnesium. If you're taking calcium, you want to take the calcium as hydroxyapatite, which is going to go to your bones. That's bone generator, and to take it about 35 minutes after to 45 minutes after your two largest meals. That's what you want. It's really important to understand that because the maximum absorption of minerals is just 10 centimeters of the small bowel. We'll be back in just a moment with Tim Alexander, an update on all the major news items, and Tim is I'm sure, going to have some opinions about what's going on in Europe with the attack in the Berlin Christmas area. 12 dead, I think 50 injured. The attacks in Turkey with the assassination of at least one Russian ambassador. I heard there was a second that maybe was assassinated as well. All the things that are going on in our world, we need to address as we approach the holidays, because it's an affront to Islam that we celebrate Christmas every year. Back in a moment with Tim Alexander.